to be taught the art of ladylike accomplishments. Jean's angry thoughts turned from her uncle to her classmates, Lady Mary and Lady Bess. The twins were as pretty and empty-headed as china dolls, forever giggling and whispering in corners and excluding Jean from their conversation. They had prattled on for weeks about the dresses and jewellery they would wear to the ball and speculated about the gentlemen who would be present, but never once had they intimated that Jean was to be one of the guests. The ball was in honour of Mary and Bess's 18th birthday and was to be a prelude to their removal to London the following week, where they were to make their come out. The Duchess of Glenrandle also nourished hopes that the romantic setting of a ball would prompt their house guest, the Marquess of Fleetwater, to develop a tendre for one of her daughters. Jean wished them all success with the Marquess. She had only seen him from a distance, and although she allowed him to be extremely handsome, he seemed very cold and proud. That evening Jean wearily waited to be dismissed from the dining room while her uncle ranted and raved over the shortcomings of his parishioners, the meagre dinner and the insolence of their housekeeper Agnes, who had pointed out that it would take another miracle of the loaves and fishes to provide a decent meal out of the beggarly housekeeping allowance. At last he fell asleep over his brandy. A thin, cadaverous figure in rusty blacks, periwig over one eye, snuff stains overlaying wine stains on the clerical white cravat. With a sigh of relief, Jean picked up her candle and made her way up 3 flights of dark, narrow stairs to the attic. Throwing back the lid of an old black trunk, Jean picked out dress after dress, putting aside the ones with great hoops and panniers until she came across one of a simpler cut than the rest. It was of straw-coloured satin, scooped low over the bosom, but narrower than the others. It had an overdress with panniers, à la Berger, which was surely long out of style. But the heavy sheen of satin felt luxurious to fingers used to serge, cotton, and calico. It would have to do. The current mode was for evening slippers of kid tied with delicate ribbons. The only footwear available was a pair of gold shoes with high heels of crimson. She decided that they would not show under the long skirt, and who would ask her to dance anyway? When Jean arrived at the castle next day, the whole household seemed to be in a tremendous bustle with preparations for the ball. Escaping up the stairs to the comparative quiet of the schoolroom, she found the governess, Miss Taylor, waiting alone. Lady Mary and Lady Bess have persuaded Her Grace that they are now too old for the schoolroom, so my job here is finished, said the little governess. I shall receive a pension, of course, but what is to become of you, my dear? She looked sadly at her pupil and friend. At 17, Jean had grown into a slim, dreamy girl with a heavy mass of carrot-coloured hair, slanting green eyes, and a small, pointed, freckled face, which no amount of Denmark lotion would leave unblemished. It seemed unfair, mused Miss Taylor, that 2 such silly chits as her ducal charges had all the wealth, and the clever Miss Lindsay none at all. I shall manage, said Jean. I can't think of the future, only of this evening. I shall be wearing a dress of my mamma's. It is not the height of fashion, but the colour is exceeding pretty. Miss Taylor threw up her hands in horror. Do you mean your uncle has not bought you a dress for the ball? Jean shook her head sadly. He says 'tis sinfully wicked to be thinking of clothes. Well, goodness knows we're far enough away from London, said Miss Taylor bracingly. I doubt if many of the ladies will be the crack of fashion. Jean looked moodily out of the window across the sunlit terraced gardens to the loch below. The water rippling in the chill winter wind darkened and changed like the expressions on Jean's face. It was hard to remember that in the summer orange blossoms grew around the urns and balustrades of the terraces, and one could pick peaches and apricots in the walled garden. It doesn't really matter what I look like, she said savagely.